Summer, 1462. Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, rides with his army toward Wallachia. The air is heavy, the silence oppressive. His men expect a siege, but what awaits will scar their souls forever. They crest a hill, and then silence breaks into retching. Before them lies a grotesque sight. A forest of 20,000 stakes, each crowned with the rotting corpse of a human being. Battle-hardened soldiers, men who stormed Constantinople, vomit into the dirt. The smell of decay hangs like a curse, so thick it seeps into their clothes, their mouths, their nightmares. At the center of this nightmare rises a golden stake. Upon it rots Hamza Pasha, once the Sultan's own general, his body twisted in agony, even in death, displayed as if mocking Ottoman power. This was not war. This was theatre, a grotesque performance of cruelty staged by a man who understood fear better than any king or conqueror. That man was Vlad III Dracula. The world would remember him by another name, not just Vlad the Impaler, but the monster who turned terror itself into a weapon sharper than any blade. And this was only the beginning, because Vlad was not born a monster. He was made into one, forged in betrayal, raised in captivity, and unleashed upon a world that had broken him. Before we descend deeper into Vlad's abyss of blood and betrayal, make sure you subscribe to Historica right now. Hit like, share this video, and drop your country in the comments. Don't miss the darkest corners of history. What comes next is too shocking to watch alone. To understand Vlad Dracula, we must first strip away the myth. He was no vampire. He was flesh, blood, and bone. And it was flesh, blood, and bone that molded him into a nightmare. Vlad was born in 1431 in Transylvania, a frontier land of shifting loyalties. His father, Vlad II Dracula, was sworn to both Hungary and the Ottoman Sultan, a tightrope walk of power and treachery. As a child, Vlad's world was betrayal. His father was inducted into the Order of the Dragon, sworn to fight the Ottomans, but soon bent the knee to them, exchanging loyalty for survival. In 1442, the price of that loyalty came due. Vlad II handed over his sons, young Vlad III and his brother Radu, as hostages to the Ottoman Sultan Murad II. Their childhood was ripped away. For years, Vlad lived not as a prince, but as a prisoner. He was taught Turkish, drilled in Islamic law, and trained to ride and fight under the men who conquered his homeland. But behind the lessons lurked cruelty. Discipline in Ottoman custody was brutal. Young hostages were beaten, humiliated, and taught submission through terror. Vlad absorbed it all. Radu, his younger brother, adapted. He charmed the Ottoman court, winning favour. He even grew close to Mehmed II, the Sultan's son, forging bonds that would later pit brother against brother. But Vlad hardened. He learned that survival meant defiance. Every lash, every humiliation carved into him the belief that fear was the only weapon no man could resist. When news arrived in 1447 that his father and elder brother had been betrayed and murdered back in Wallachia, something inside Vlad broke, and something darker took root. His father, killed by Hungarian allies, his brother, buried alive, and Vlad himself still shackled in Ottoman custody. To him, betrayal was no longer just politics. It was the natural order of life. What kind of man emerges from such chains? A boy robbed of innocence, taught that cruelty was law, betrayal inevitable, and power only real when it made others bleed. That boy would soon return home. But he would not come back as a son. He would come back as vengeance incarnate. In 1448, the Ottomans released Vlad, hoping to use him as a puppet prince. He was given soldiers, but no trust. To them, he was expendable, a pawn in their endless frontier wars. Yet even as a teenager, Vlad was no pawn. He seized power in Wallachia briefly, but Hungarian rivals pushed him out. His first reign was short, bloody, and ended in exile. For years, he wandered between kingdoms, switching allegiances with ruthless pragmatism. Hungary, Moldavia, even the Ottomans. Vlad bent the knee when he had to, but always plotted revenge. By 1456, opportunity struck. The Hungarians, desperate for allies against the Ottomans, backed Vlad. With their support, he seized Wallachia once again, and this time he ruled with iron claws. But he did not rule as his father had. Vlad had no illusions about loyalty. He knew his boyars, the nobles of Wallachia, were treacherous, their knives always waiting for a back turned. On Easter 1457, Vlad invited hundreds of boyars to a grand feast. They ate, drank, and toasted his return. Then, mid-banquet, Vlad gave the signal. Some nobles were stabbed where they sat. Others were chained and marched away. Within hours, Vlad had impaled dozens, leaving their bodies swaying like grotesque decorations. The survivors were not spared. They were enslaved, forced to march 100 miles to build Vlad's fortress at Poenari. Old men died on the road. Young ones collapsed from exhaustion. This was not just punishment. It was theatre, once again. Vlad knew that terror was the only way to bind loyalty in a land where betrayal was tradition. His message was clear. In Wallachia, loyalty was not given. It was extracted drop by drop in blood. But Vlad's brutality did not end with his nobles. Thieves, peasants, even women accused of infidelity. All were subject to the stake. His forests of impaled corpses grew, warnings carved into flesh. Foreign merchants whispered of roads lined with stakes, bodies twitching as crows feasted on their eyes. Wallachia became a land where even rumours bled. Yet strangely, his people obeyed. Under Vlad's reign, crime all but vanished. A golden goblet was said to rest in a public square for years, untouched, because fear was sharper than any law. To his enemies, he was a sadist. To his people, he was both monster and protector, and to himself he was becoming something even darker, a ruler who saw mercy as weakness. By 1462, Vlad's path collided once more with the empire that had shaped him, the Ottomans. Mehmed II, now Sultan, demanded tribute from Wallachia. Vlad refused. Worse, he mocked them. He executed Ottoman envoys by nailing their turbans to their heads. Word spread like wildfire. Dracula had declared war on the empire. At night, Vlad launched lightning raids across the Danube, burning villages, slaughtering garrisons, and poisoning wells. He called it defense. The Ottomans called it terror. In one raid, he massacred over 20,000 men, women, and children. Not soldiers, but settlers in Ottoman lands. Their corpses were impaled, a grotesque message carved into the earth itself. Mehmed II responded with fury. In June 1462, he marched with an army of over 100,000 men, a force larger than any Wallachia could field. Against such numbers, Vlad was a gnat before a giant. But Vlad did not fight like a king. He fought like a ghost. He abandoned open battle and embraced guerrilla terror, striking at night, vanishing by dawn, leaving only corpses in his wake. The climax came in June, the night attack. Vlad and a band of warriors infiltrated the Ottoman camp under darkness, setting fires, slaughtering soldiers, even reaching Mehmed's own tent. The Sultan barely escaped with his life. His army, shaken and paranoid, fought shadows more than men. Every rustle in the night became a threat. Every shadow, a phantom impaler. Days later came the horror that broke them. The Ottomans marched toward Targovishte and found the forest of the impaled. 20,000 stakes, 20,000 rotting corpses, an entire landscape turned into hell itself. Mehmed, conqueror of Constantinople, gazed upon this grotesque masterpiece and shuddered. He called his officers, and then, in a decision unthinkable for the man who stormed empires, he ordered retreat. Wallachia was too small to matter strategically, but Vlad had shown the world something terrifying. That cruelty, weaponized with precision, could make empires tremble. And yet, the seeds of his downfall had already been planted, because terror is a blade that cuts both ways. If you've made it this far, you already know this is not the fairy tale Dracula. This is far worse. If you're fascinated by how power twists into cruelty, hit subscribe to Histo Eureka. Drop a like, share this with a friend, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Vlad's greatest enemy was not only the Sultan, it was his own blood. His brother Radu, once his fellow hostage, now fought for the Ottomans as Radu the Handsome. Where Vlad ruled by terror, Radu ruled by charm. The Ottomans installed him as their puppet in Wallachia, promising peace and stability against Vlad's cruelty. Wallachian nobles, weary of Vlad's massacres, began to desert him. Even peasants, once silent in fear, saw in Radu a softer alternative. By 1462, Vlad was isolated, his allies fled, his army thinned, and soon he was captured, not by Ottomans but by Hungarians who imprisoned him for over a decade. For 12 years, Dracula rotted in chains once again. He was paraded in iron shackles, mocked as the monster who had once terrified an empire. Yet even in captivity his legend grew. Travellers wrote of his cruelty, his forests of stakes, his unholy punishments. In Germany, pamphlets depicted him as a demon who drank blood. And in that prison, the myth began. Vlad the ruler became Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the man became Dracula the monster. In 1476, fate twisted once more. Hungary released Vlad, hoping to use him against the Ottomans yet again. He returned to Wallachia, crowned a third time. But his final reign was short. Old enemies circled like wolves, his own people distrusted him, and the Ottomans struck back with overwhelming force. In December 1476, Vlad Dracula was killed in battle. Accounts differ. Some say his men betrayed him, others that he fell to Ottoman blades. His head was cut off, sent to Constantinople as proof. His body was buried, perhaps at Snagov Monastery, though no grave has ever been confirmed. The man who weaponized death became a corpse no one could find, but his legend did not rot. Instead, it grew. German and Russian tales painted him as a monster. Centuries later, Bram Stoker would twist him into the vampire Count Dracula. Yet the truth was darker than any myth. Vlad was no supernatural fiend. He was something more terrifying, a man who learned that fear itself could rule nations. You've just walked through forests of corpses, betrayal and cruelty beyond imagination. If you believe history should never be sanitized, that the truth, however dark, must be told, then subscribe to Historica, like this video, share it, and leave your country in the comments. Together we keep these shadows alive. Vlad Dracula turned fear into a kingdom. But if you thought impalement was the darkest execution in history, wait until you discover the method that carved victims alive piece by piece over days. A death so horrifying it makes Dracula's stakes look merciful.